So who is Nat and how do they do that? Recently, a lot of my photographs and videos about how I make my photographs have been going semi-viral online, and I've been getting a lot of questions and comments from people about how I do my photos, the ethics of how I do it, my style, how I get the colors and the punchiness, and what the hell is a darkroom print, and I get a lot of questions about that every single day. And beyond that, I realized because there's a lot of new people looking at my work, which I'm really grateful and excited for, means there's a lot of people that don't know anything about me, who I am, or how I make these photos. So I wanted to make this video to answer a lot of really commonly asked questions about my work, and just kind of talk a little bit more about my process, how I got started, and how I do my style. Now again, I want to emphasize this video is not going to be giving a step-by-step how to copy Nat, because I don't think any artist should be trying to copy me or figure out the magic formula that people seem to think that I'm hiding or something. But I want to talk more broadly about the different techniques I'm employing, the care and consideration I'm putting into every photograph, and how that translates to a photograph that is clearly very intentionally made and very technically sound. So I want to talk a little bit more about that, and through that, hopefully you guys will know a little bit more about me. I'll put some timestamps over here so you can click around and see different things that I talk about if you wish. But first, very quick 30-second intro, just say that my name is Nat. My last name is pronounced Sehebre. Most people also ask me that. You can also say Segabre, I'm pretty used to that, but Nat Sehebre is my full name. And I'm originally from South Florida, and Colombian American, and I have been taking photographs since I was a kid. I've always been obsessed with not even just taking photographs, but actually making content. I used to make videos of myself and vlogs with my brother, and there have been many periods in my life where I've been on the internet. You may have seen some of my videos back in 2020 when I first was making TikTok videos, and those were doing pretty well. But after a bit, I got really tired of making videos, and I wanted to focus a lot more on my photographs. And so after taking a couple years break from making videos online and really focusing on my photographs, I finally came back this year to the whole video making because I really love doing it, actually. And I found a cool style that I really enjoy making, which is a balance between education and teaching people some things that I do to get my photographs, which I'm very passionate about. I really love education and teaching. And then simultaneously, I also get to share my work. And of course, the work that I make is the thing that I'm most passionate about in this life. So being able to do a balance of those two is very fun. But going right into it, I want to start talking about my ethics of photography. I think that there's a lot of content online about photography. We get to see a lot of photographers make their photographs and their processes. And so I want to talk a little bit about mine because I think that's really important in my work. My process of actually taking the image, and then after I take the image and creating the print and everything, that whole process, to be honest, is about half of my practice. Besides those photos and the final products that you see, the process is just as important in my practice as the actual photo is. So I want to first talk a little bit about that. When it comes to documentary photography, or street photography if you want to call it, there's a lot of different types of techniques people do. We can think about Gary Winogrand, who pretended he didn't know what the camera was doing and quickly flicked a quick photo before anyone noticed what was going on. We have Bruce Gilden, and of course the kind of rise of people now in New York who photograph on 42nd Street or 34th Street, Midtown, usually doing black and white with a Leica and a flash, and doing something very, very quick, and getting that style that way. I would describe my style as, to be honest, the opposite of those types of styles. Nothing wrong with that, it's just not what I like to do. But with my ethics and my workflow and my process and how I make the best images for me, it's being very engaged with my subject and what I'm doing. Meaning that when I'm photographing people, like these photos here, for example, let's talk about this picture of Milo and Rory, these two kids that I photographed in Massachusetts that a lot of people saw and really, really liked it. With this type of photo, I would never go up to these kids and try and sneak a photo really, really quickly and run away. For me, my photographs and making the photograph is not about the act of surprise or the act of intrusion. It's really about getting to know someone, collaborating, and capturing something that is organic and unique without trying to infiltrate too much on the moment, but also being respectful. So for the kids, for example, the ethics of photographing kids is a whole other thing that I can talk about a little bit. Being genuine, open, and honest with your intentions is very important to me, and I think that's really how I can kind of encapsulate how I'm making an image. When it comes to taking a portrait of somebody, I always go up to them first and I say, hey, I really like this about your hair, or I like the way your hat looks with the color behind you, and I'm photographing people today at this fair, or I'm photographing this and that, and I find you really interesting or beautiful. Do you mind if I take your picture? And just that introduction and having someone know what your intentions are, and also letting them know why and giving them a compliment, usually takes people very aback. I've gone up to so many like older people at fairs that look very, very grumpy, and I've asked them directly, hey, could I take a photo of you? And there's always the reaction of, me? What do you mean you want to take a photo of me? And when I explain why, and I compliment and I explicate why I think it's a beautiful image, I see their frown really just dissipate, and they're like, okay, yeah, sure, and they end up wanting to talk to me for so long after. And I think that whole process, that whole idea of opening somebody up and talking to a stranger and creating those connections is what makes photography so fun for me. I think I'm also naturally an extrovert. I love talking with people and meeting new people. It fuels me a lot. And so I think photography is my vehicle. I think it was, there's someone, I forgot her name, I'll put it here. I forgot the photographer, but a very famous photographer said that the camera is my passport. That's exactly how I feel. I really feel that the camera is my gateway into meeting new people. And so similarly with photographing kids, I am never going up and sneaking a photo. I always try to find the parent first if they're around, and I say, hey, are these your kids? I think they look so cute for these reasons. Do you mind if I take a quick photo? And you'll see any hesitation erased from the parent's face right away. And they're like, oh yeah, of course, and they look relieved that you came up to them first and you asked them direct, these are your kids, can I photograph them? And up till now, I've never gotten a no, and I'm sure I will get a no eventually, but people typically, as long as you're upfront with them, don't really care. And again, I'm talking about America, right? I'm not talking about anywhere abroad. This is like really American customs and standards, right? But additionally, once I asked the parent, I also asked the kid. So when I was photographing Milo and Rory, you can see in this clip here, I think this was right before they started filming, but I also asked the kids like, hey, I'm gonna take a photo of you, is that okay? Like, would you mind just stepping forward a little bit? You guys look great. And actually the mom came over and she was helping pose the kids as well, since she said they were a little awkward. But I thought that was honestly such a beautiful part of the image. I feel like that those kids really encapsulated what it's like being a kid. That slight awkwardness, a little bit uncomfortable, really in awe, a little bit confused but excited. That's what I really felt was so exciting to me about that image. But for me personally, I really feel like talking to people and forming that connection not only is a nice interaction for me and the person, but I think also really shows in the photograph. I think the comfortability of both the photographer and the subject really show when you put that extra effort to talking to somebody. And by forming that connection, you also get to know your subject well. For example, this girl was named Stella, and she was telling me that she didn't get into her high school photography class, but she really wanted to. And so I offered her to use the camera and try to take a picture of her horse. And her eyes, you can see here, really lit up. She was so excited, and it was just so gratifying and fruitful for me to be able to share my passion with somebody else. And that wouldn't have happened unless I had gone up and talked to her and made a connection as opposed to just snapping a quick photo and walking away. And so in general, when I'm making photos of people specifically that are really the subject of it, that's what I do. When it comes to a farther away picture, like if we talk about this photo, for example, from my Coney Island project of these people on the boardwalk, I didn't go up to them individually to talk to them. I was far enough away and I was capturing such a broad scene, and it was so instantaneous as well that I quickly grabbed it and I kept walking. So now I want to talk about probably the most asked question, which is, how do your photos look like that? And when people say that, I'm kind of at a loss for what to say because I'm not really sure what they mean. Although I am typically assuming it's about the color or the messy border or the really deep contrast or something they are deeming as like otherworldly or magical. And one, that is the greatest compliment, that people are very confused as to how I'm taking a photo like this. But it also shows I'm doing something right. And I think in general, what I employ in terms of like what I am photographing and what I choose to, beyond the, technical aspects of how I make color look a certain way, I think what at the core of what I really try to do is, if you guys know the literature genre, magical realism, which is really employed and coined by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, that sort of style, that literary style, is about writing about daily life with just a tinge of magic in it. Not that it's fantasy, right? But but discovering and amplifying and emphasizing the small magic that we experience in everyday life, and kind of the blurry line between, is that real life or is this fiction? And that blurry line that Marquez and other authors really toe between, that's what I really try to do in my photographs. I think life is so beautiful and magical enough that I don't really get excited by doing a studio portrait or something where I am orchestrating anything to take a photo. I get so excited about capturing something as it's happening, right, and transforming it into something else. And by transforming it into something else, I mean that documenting something with enough precision and care in both the moment of how I expose it to how I am printing it and the way that it looks. All of those choices, I am trying to elevate that ordinary, very quick moment into something otherworldly. And my favorite thing is when I'm with a friend or a family member or anyone, and they're with me the day or the moment that I take a photo. And a month later or something, I show them the print and they always say, "Where did you see that?" Or "How did you do that?" Because they were there with me, but it was almost like I didn't see it happening like that, or when did that happen? And that's always the best compliment to me, because that's what I'm trying to do. There's so much magic in everyday life that goes unnoticed, that when you're able to capture it and really solidify it and give it the care and attention it deserves to make it a beautiful, almost like a painting, really is how I think of my work. I think that's when the art of photography, the magic of painting with light, really comes full circle. And when it comes to my style and my colors and the way that my photos look like this, again, it's very difficult to answer in one answer, besides the fact that I am very intentional and precise. Not just in how I'm composing something, but how I expose something. And I think that is the most important aspect of my work. In terms of how I get it to look like this, it's very intentional exposure. Making a photo for me is not a mistake. It's not a quick little snap and that's it, although sometimes it is. But most of the time, it's a very careful and precise decision on how I expose something and how I print it. I really try to employ how Ansel Adams described making a photograph. He described the photographic process as one fluid motion that begins the moment that you visualize your image, meaning the moment I was there in person at that fair, I saw those kids and I could see the photo that I could make. And then my last step, or the last step in the photographic process, being the darkroom print. And what that means is that the darkroom printing process doesn't begin the moment you enter the darkroom, it enters the moment that you make the image. And so that means exposing your image very meticulously, which I do. I'm always doing very careful metering. At this point, I've gotten pretty good at it that I don't need to be sitting there doing a little math on a notebook, but I know it well enough that I can meter very quickly, either with my eyes without using the light meter or my light meter, which I typically do. And metering different parts of the scene and knowing what I want to prioritize, how to average all of the readings, and then where I want to either add light with some fill flash or just do natural light, and what I'm trying to prioritize and capture. And so by getting a negative that is very meticulously exposed, I create something called a healthy negative. You need a healthy negative to make a beautiful print, meaning that you need enough information in the negative to actually draw from and make a print from. The way that you make a healthy negative is having enough and substantial information in your highlights, your shadows, and your midtones. And so by exposing very precise and meticulously, it makes it so I have a lot of room to play with in darkroom. The other thing is with color printing specifically, a lot of people may not realize this, but the contrast and color in your photo is built in the moment you make your negative. It's not something I'm adding or that you add in the darkroom. If you expose your image very underexposed, or you don't have a lot of contrast built into your negative, you can't just add it later like you do in black and white printing. Same with saturation. There's no saturation slider for me to turn on. Really what you're doing is color balancing. So you can have your image to be perfectly color balanced, meaning white balance, quote unquote, or you can color balance it to look maybe a little warm or a little cool, but in general, you can't amp up the saturation, right? So why do my photos look so colorful? It's what I'm choosing to photograph. As I said, none of my photos are a mistake. Those kids, Milo and Rory of this picture, I probably wouldn't have taken it if there was no light, right? If there was no golden hour light hitting them and the sky wasn't that color, I may not have taken it. Or if I did, it wouldn't have come out as good. So I'm typically trying to photograph during certain times of day. I like golden hour or blue hour, or even sunrise, all of the times when the sun is very, very potent in the sky. And because it's not overhead, but it's rather this way, and it's shining this way on subjects as opposed to overhead, the lighting is not flat and, boring and blah. When it's coming from this way and it's saturated and golden and very concentrated, that golden light tends to shape and differentiate and transform the world. It makes shadows very long and makes ordinary buildings romantic and golden, same with skin tone. It's just a lovely time to make photos, which is why you'll see a lot of my photos look very blue and very gold. But again, I'm also looking in composition, where is there color to be found? Like this photo of the woman blowing the balloon. She had so many colorful balloons behind her. There was no light hitting her. I just used a flash, but it was the color in the balloons and her shirt that really said to me, oh, I need to take this photo. And so if I can boil down my style and quote unquote how I do it to two separate things, it's one, being very meticulous in how I expose it, and two, being very meticulous in what I'm choosing to photograph. Don't underestimate giving your photographs or your art a lot of care and time. Don't just go out there and try and shoot something quickly. I mean, you can, and that is certainly a style, but if people are asking me how I'm getting it to look a certain way, it's really just about how much care I put into every single photograph. And also the passion that I have for it. Photography is the thing that gives me life, really, that keeps me going, that makes me excited. And there is not a day that goes by that I would not be excited to get up and have my camera and find something new in the world to bring to life with my camera. The last thing I also want to point out is the importance and effect of making a photograph on film and then producing it and reproducing it in the way that it was intended. When I make photos on film, I'm not scanning them. I'm making a darkroom print, which is an analog process that goes from emulsion to emulsion, meaning you're taking the physical negative emulsion and then reprinting it and projecting it onto a piece of emulsion, which is paper. Darkroom paper is light sensitive, just like film, and making a darkroom print really is like re-photographing your negative, and the process is actually very similar to taking a photo. There's an aperture on your lens for how much light is coming out of the enlarger. There's a timer for how long is the light hitting the paper, just like there is with shutter speed and aperture on a camera. But some of the magic and the true, beautiful, unique look of my photos, besides all the things that I talked about today, is that darkroom printing process. There's something that's not able to really be explicated about why it looks so good and what it does to the photo, but there's something magical about taking that film emulsion, reproducing it, and printing it on a piece of paper emulsion, and creating a beautiful archival analog print. And I really think that that's another really major thing people are kind of not getting, but a lot of it is the print itself. And it's such a beautiful process that, as you all know, I'm trying to demystify a little bit and explain more here on the internet, on YouTube and on Instagram. So if there's anything about the printing process you want to learn more about, leave me a comment below. I'm working on hopefully hosting a class pretty soon and doing a couple other things to make it accessible. But one thing that you can do right now is you can head over to my Substack. I've actually created a whole darkroom resources guide. There's one which is a darkroom location master list and also an educational materials master list. Those two things are on Substack. They'll be continuously updated. If you want to see the updated version, you need to access it via the Substack app or on a web browser, not your email. You can subscribe to my Substack if you'd like. It's free. There are paid tiers if you'd like to support me giving the information. But I compiled all these resources for everybody to hopefully help people first get started with darkroom printing. So go and check out my Substack. Make sure to subscribe to it. And thank you for watching this video. I don't want to make this too long. I'll make some other videos about myself and whatever in my work, but let me know what kind of videos you'd like to see from me. I wanted to do kind of just an introductory video since it's been a very long time on the channel since I've really sat down and been like, hey, I'm Nat and this is what I do. But yeah, so hopefully that answers a little bit of people's questions. But I'd love to make more videos about process, which I already do on Instagram. You can check out my Instagram over here to see my short videos about my process and what I do. But I would love to make more long form content about how I do it and what I do. So if you have any more specific questions, let me know. And subscribe to the channel. I'll be making more YouTube videos now this year, and I'm very excited to continue making videos. So see y'all soon. And until then, you can keep up with my work also on Instagram or my website, which is my pride and joy. All right, bye.